Step 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Practicing Step 3 is like approaching a door that appears closed and locked. All we need is the key and the decision to open it. That key is willingness. Once unlocked by willingness, the door opens almost on its own, revealing a pathway marked by an inscription. This is the way to a faith that works. In the first 2 steps, we reflected on our powerlessness over alcohol and recognized that faith, even if only in AA itself, is possible for anyone. These realizations required acceptance rather than action. Step 3, however, demands affirmative action. It is through action that we begin to dismantle the self-will that has blocked God or a higher power from entering our lives. Faith is essential, but faith alone is not enough. We can have faith and still keep God at a distance. The challenge now is to discover how and by what means we can truly let Him in. Step 3 is our first attempt to do this. In fact, the success of the entire AA program hinges on how earnestly we strive to make a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. To many newcomers, this step seems daunting, even impossible. How can one surrender their will and life to a God they may not fully understand? Yet those of us who have tried it, despite our initial doubts, can attest that anyone can begin this process. Even the smallest step is enough. Once we place the key of willingness in the lock and open the door just a crack, we find it becomes easier to open it wider. Though self-will may slam it shut again, as it often does, the door will always respond when we pick up the key of willingness once more. This may sound abstract, like Einstein's theory of relativity or a concept from nuclear physics, but it's actually quite practical. Every AA member who is committed to staying sober has, without realizing it, already begun Step 3. By deciding to turn their lives over to the care, protection and guidance of AA, they've demonstrated a willingness to set aside their own will and ideas about alcohol in favor of those suggested by the program. This is, in essence, turning one's will and life over to a newfound providence. Yet some may resist, thinking, I can depend on AA for alcohol, but in all other matters, I must maintain my independence. If I keep surrendering my will, what will become of me? I'll lose my identity. This is the voice of ego, which seeks to preserve self-will and hinder spiritual growth. However, the reality is this: the more we depend on a higher power, the more spiritually independent we become. In AA, dependence is not a weakness, but a path to true freedom. Consider how dependent we are in everyday life, often without realizing it. Modern homes rely on electricity for power and light. We gladly accept this dependence because it makes our lives more comfortable and secure. Similarly, dependence on a higher power can bring us greater independence, comfort, and security in our spiritual lives. However, when it comes to our mental or emotional independence, we often resist. We insist on making all our decisions alone, believing we can control our inner lives through willpower and intelligence. However, this self-reliant philosophy often leads to frustration and failure. A look in the mirror, or at the world around us, reveals the chaos and conflict that arise from unchecked self-will. For alcoholics, this realization is a turning point. Having suffered under the weight of self-will, we are driven to seek something better. Through AA, we admit defeat, embrace the beginnings of faith, and decide to turn our will and lives over to a higher power. The word dependence may be unsettling to some, including psychiatrists and alcoholics alike. While unhealthy forms of dependence exist, such as excessive emotional reliance on a parent, dependence on AA or a higher power is not damaging. In fact, it has proven to be a source of strength, as demonstrated by AA members who served in World War II. Scattered across the globe, they relied on their spiritual principles to endure the hardships of war, emerging stronger and more resilient. So how does one continue to turn their will and life over to a higher power? It begins with relying on AA for help with alcohol, but it doesn't end there. As we grow in sobriety, we realize that alcohol is just one of many problems. Remorse, guilt, bitterness, financial insecurity, and damaged relationships persist, and our willpower alone cannot resolve them. We must depend on something or someone greater than ourselves. Initially, that someone may be a trusted AA sponsor or friend. They remind us that sobriety is just the beginning, and that lasting peace and fulfillment require working the remaining steps. Step 3 is the foundation for this journey. It requires sustained effort and a willingness to align our will with God's. When we strive to conform our will to God's, we begin to use it rightly. This is a profound revelation, Our misuse of willpower, trying to force solutions rather than aligning with God's plan, has been the root of our troubles. Step 3 opens the door to a new way of living. Once we embrace this idea, practicing step 3 becomes simple. In moments of emotional turmoil or indecision, we can pause, seek stillness, and say, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Thy will, not mine, be done. This is the essence of step 3, a decision to trust, to surrender, and to begin a transformative journey toward a faith that works.